well, that's a deep, very difficult question. I mean, what I always emphasize is musicality. Mm-hmm. So I can't say that it's kind of a tone that sounds exactly like in a certain way, but it's a tone that serves the music. So when it's in context of music, it sounds the best. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the main philosophy of my building, is how the tone sits in the mix. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of the combination of course a tone that makes you very, very comfortable, but it's so it kind of becomes an extension of you. It's a tool that can kind of create what you need it to do. But this kind of again, coming from the I call it how should I put this, framing, nurturing the source, as in the tone will never become better than the source, than where it comes from in the beginning. So if you kind of make it pure and honest from from the beginning, mm-hmm. then you will be able to kind of control it further down the line. Course, yeah. And by adding stuff, you can make it, you know, you can shape it in different ways. But if there's something unhealthy with the source from the beginning, then that will only get bigger and bigger. You more you amplify it.
Yeah,
so, but of course, it's like everything else, it's a matter of taste as well. So, but for me, it's making that instrument behave dynamically, like the player needs it to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, can I ask a second question?
You can ask very many questions, and you can and feel free to, you know, if I understand it wrong, then or if you want any other type of answer, then please let me know, and I'll try to.
When did you start building instrument, and why did you start in this business?
I started building instruments about when I was maybe 17 or 18 years old.
Oh.
I was a bass player, studying music and wanting to become a bass player, but from when I was a small child, I loved woodworking. I did woodworking with my granddad, and when I from very, very small age, and eventually those paths crossed, so the music of bass playing, and I was always very interested in the instrument itself. And
you started making instruments very early.
Yeah, I guess it's fairly early, yes.
Yeah.
So, but when I was 19 years old, I went to England to study guitar making. And I've done it professionally since I was 22, maybe 23, 22, 21. I can't remember even. I would like to think that that I can. My instruments can provide something that they can't find in any other instrument, and thereby it's very unique. So yeah, it's difficult to answer any kind of, you know, as a one specific thing. But hopefully it's the musicality and the way the instrument responds to the player, which is the thing. But that's always so individual. So it also the player has to find what works for them. So it's.
In my opinion, your instrument making player player can find their own tone. Your instrument helping a player.
Yeah.
If they want to find their own tone.
Exactly.
Yeah. Your instrument is very honest sound.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to hear you say that. So, and and that's what I strive to create that tool, so they can carve their own personality into it. So
your instrument is helping find a player character. Yeah.
Well, I guess you can say that. Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
So, and the next question is, what kind of music genre do you think your instrument suits? Like a 80s, 60s funk or soul music?
Well, I would like to think that if I succeed with the musicality of it, it should suit almost anything.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's certain wood combinations and characteristics of instruments that suits better for funk or say slap or but ultimately my goal is to make a tool that can melt into anything, as long as, depending on what the player, if the player puts it into the instrument, then it should hopefully deliver. Deliver that.
Last question is only for you.
Okay.
It's my personal. I wonder about weight control method.
Yeah.
Among your instrument option, I'd like to know what made you think of this idea and how it works. And you always make instrument with hardware. But you already answered that in their room.
Oh, yeah.
You always make your instrument with hardware. You have that. Do you have any plan to use other company product? Like you always use Lundgren pickup.
Yeah.
But do you have a plan? Or the third party?
Well, not really, no, because also with the pickups, they are also specially made for my hand. So I also use various different variations of the pickup as well. So I normally combine. So I listen to the pickup, every pickup in a bass. So I might swap pickups many times before I decide which pickup will be for each bass, because every bass sounds slightly different, but also every pickup works differently in different bass. So one pickup that sounds amazing in one bass, so if you take that pickup and move it to another bass, it's not necessarily, because that might have a different frequency response, or the movement of the string is slightly different, so it doesn't pick up the same thing. So all of a sudden that cannot. So it's very organic. Yeah.
So you mean it? Your Lundgren pickup is customized for you.
Yes. So we've worked, over 10 years, maybe 15 soon, and so I have one which we call the kind of Stenback standard, which I always kind of start from, and then I have various different windings on each side of them, so I can.
It's amazing, because that means normal Lundgren pickup and your Lundgren pickup is a little bit different.
Yes.
Good. And
but I didn't answer the metal if you wanted to.
Yeah. Add something. When I experience your bass in Korea,
Yeah.
I feel different when I attach metal
Yeah.
and divide metal. It's a very similar result, like a heavy bridge and light bridge.
Yeah.
It's very similar result in my opinion.
Yeah, it's and it kind of, the idea slightly comes from that kind of thinking as well, because with my bridge design, it's all about how about energy transfer and energy absorption underneath the bridge, how I can control how the string feels and how it responds. And in my opinion, that can't be achieved with a heavy bridge design, because that will kind of bring its own sound, and it's very difficult to work around that within my design, at least. So with the attachment, the weight attachment is kind of being able to then fine tune or tune the dynamic response of the instrument. It's also, I usually call it physical IQing or EQing. So you almost kind of EQ it with the weight. But that's also I attached it to the plate partly because I want it to be detachable, so you can remove it if you prefer it without, or you can also use it, for example, in studio environment, where you need the bass maybe to shift a little bit in the mix, and you can put it on and it behaves slightly differently without starting to manipulate the sound, and so that's where the idea comes from, and also the placement. It's on the magnetic plate, so the plate isn't screwed down on the body, and also the placement of the weight on the plate is shifted quite far, as far forward on the plate as it fits, also so it can be away from the bridge area where the tone kind of absorbs.
It's a brilliant idea, yeah.
So very simple, and it's also like everything else, very organic. So it's not, you can't just take any weight and put it and it will sound like that. You have to listen, and some basses sound very different with the weight, some not as different, and some basses benefit more from it than others, and some basses it doesn't benefit. It's maybe not even preferable. So again, you kind of have to be very listen with them and feel also, because it's sometimes it's almost the bigger difference is how you feel it in the strings than how much you hear the difference. Okay. So how the string responds in your finger. So yeah. I can talk long. I can go on and on. You know, when it comes to these kind of philosophies. But sometimes with all of these kind of aspects of the build, it's some of the things that happen physically are very simple, but as soon as you try to explain them, it's very difficult when you try to use words, and so it's sometimes very difficult to explain. It's a very simple happening, but before you kind of have,
result is simple, but explain is hard.
And describing it is very difficult. So
I felt like this. I experienced two Stenback bass.
Yeah.
Maple version and Rogers version. I felt the same thing. Two basses. When I attach the metal, I feel more modern bass.
Yeah.
Like heavy bridge use, like for the Ken Smith most modern bass like Spectre, they use a heavy bridge.
Yeah.
More focusing some middle range, or
Yeah, well, it kind of adds a bit of natural compression.
Yeah,
and,
natural compression.
And that's something that heavy bridges usually add a lot of compression, and so in one way it kind of evens out the sounds, maybe makes it slightly bigger, more kind of balanced sounding, but it also takes away a bit of the directness and the breathing of the sound.
Yeah, right. So when I divided the metals, I felt more open wood sound.
Yeah.
I felt so more natural and more neutral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's also kind of why I say that some might prefer it with the weight on, and some people without, and it's very kind of and then sometimes it serves a purpose in a song or a music with the weight or without the weight. So it's again that kind of organic.